Next question, how will you balance this growth with wise decisions regarding too many apartments, maintaining property values, and the quality of life here in South Jordan?
Oh, that is probably the worst place that bad facts have been delivered to this campaign. Number one, bad fact. I've been accused of approving 80% of all of the housing as high-density housing. It's a true fact. If, in fact, it was 2008. Because that's when that figure came out, was 2008. They approved 80% of the housing to be high-density. We're not doing that in 2012 and 2013. Another bad fact. We've had 5 high-density projects brought to us by different developers on different properties. All 5 of them were actually approved by the Planning Commission. They were delivered to the council, and we denied them. That's the fact. Another bad fact. We were a little bit in a dilemma. We're saying, why are so many of these coming forward? And we found in 2010, again, 2 years before I became the mayor, they had placed BMU and RMU throughout the city that gave a green light for developers to do high-density housing on all of these sub-areas throughout our city, the infill. As soon as we realized why they were getting that message, we took that BMU and RMU and put it in the moratorium. Nobody can do it. That's the fact, not the bad fact. We believe there's plenty of opportunities. Now, the real beauty is we are growing faster than 241 other cities and towns in the state of Utah with appreciating home values. We're one of the very highest. We're not depreciating our values. Thank you very much.
I was waiting for your signal. I think growth is going to be huge for the city, and it's one of the things I'm most passionate about. We have had a great deal of high-density growth. The study that I referred to is from 2008, but just drive along Vanderbilt Highway, look at the cranes, look at the area around the district, and you will see there's been a great deal more high-density growth occur. We're waiting for the next study that I'm sure the city will be doing to give us exact numbers. I would like to have us return to single-family homes. The mayor has just referred to this village mixed-use designation. For those of you that aren't familiar with village mixed-use, it's a designation that has no limit to the density. The developer can come in, propose something, the city council swishes it around, and then they decide if it's an up or down vote with a zone change request. And it's true that they have voted against those high-density projects, but it's mostly come after people like Chris Rogers has organized large meetings with more people that are attending this meeting have showed up in protest. And so the VMU moratorium was a reaction to the angry residents' outpouring. It was a testament to democracy, but it wasn't a credit to the leadership that's currently in place. The leadership currently in place reacted to the angry residents, and they said, let's put a halt on this. It's kind of like this debt ceiling. They kicked it down the road a ways. They haven't dealt with it yet. And what I would advise, if you agree with me that the city needs to return to single-family homes, that you elect city council members and a mayoral candidate who's very clear in their thinking when it comes to high density. Thank you.
Well, your audience wants to hear a little bit more about this. So the next question, what are your hopes for when the moratorium ends on the current VMU zone? What are the positives and what are the things that should be changed or modified?
I've already stated my position, but I've put it all over my flyers. I'm favoring a return to single-family homes. You know, as a city, it has to have a balance as dictated by state and federal law of apartments, of condominiums, of townhomes. We have met state mandates. We have fulfilled our obligations. We are outside. We are okay. And we can now have the pendulum shift back. The VMU designation either needs to be clarified, we need to tighten the designation and give the developers a better idea of what we're expecting in each area, or it needs to be eliminated completely. Some of that will depend on the legal ramifications of those decisions. But I will do all in my power to advocate towards returning to some of the things that make South Jordan great. You want to talk about property values. These are things that take many years to come to fruition, these kind of decisions. Property values don't go down overnight. It takes a little while for these things to take impact. But what I'm hearing too often is that these short-term gains that we can get through putting in a development, we're neglecting the long-term consequences to the city. And so I would say let's keep in mind the long-term consequences. What's made South Jordan the lowest crime rate in the valley? It's been strict housing standards. I don't want to say anything I shouldn't here, but let's be honest with this and say, why are we where we're at? And let's remember how we got there. Thank you.
Again, some bad facts. The reality is we are the lowest crime rate in Suffolk County. Apartments have been here for 12 years. The latest turnabout happened 5 years ago. So they've been here. Our property values are some of the greatest escalating values in the entire county. We're having more people desire to build in our area than anywhere else in the Wasatch Front. 10% of every building permit that was issued from Santaquin to Plain City, north of Ogden, 10% of every building permit was issued in South Jordan City. And you know what? The majority of them in the last 2 years, virtually all of them, were single-family homes. We're talking about things that happened 5 years ago. I'm thrilled that the candidate wants to take and follow my plan, because that's what we're doing. We're not approving a lot of high-density housing. We're just simply not doing it. Now, getting to the question. The question is, it's much more than that. We're going to have to revisit the master plan, the future use plan. We're going to have to pull that off. We had a situation where they were putting DMU and RMU on properties of as little as 5 acres. Can you imagine? It doesn't make any sense. The infill inside of our city cannot have that kind of housing on it. If you go back and look at the record, you'll see back in January of this year, I brought these statistics up and saying that they must stop. Again, in March, I said we've got to make a change. In July, we said we've got to make a change again, and we can't return to 2008. We're not going to do that. And then, as a result, we removed DMU and RMU. Thank you.
Okay, staying on this subject. I'm going to paraphrase the questioner here, and I hope they'll beg their forgiveness to give you more time. The questioner here is concerned that the move or the focus on single-family houses would eliminate minorities and poor in South Jordan. And the question is it ethically, morally, or lawfully right to abate low-income housing in South Jordan and to deny those seeking benefits of living in South Jordan the opportunity to live here? There's a second part to the question. And which is more economical to provide an infrastructure for, single-family housing or high-density units?
Well, can I get clarification on that second part? To provide an infrastructure for?
Sorry, let me reread that. Second part. Which is more economical to provide infrastructure for? So city infrastructure. Is it more economical to provide that for single-family housing units or high-density housing?
It's the same cost. We have to put in the same amount of pipe to deliver water. We have to put in the same kind of sewer system to take care of the waste. We have to take and have roads for people to take and go up and down. So the infrastructure costs are primarily the same. There could be some additional impacts. And some of those impacts are things that we're all concerned about. And that impact would be how it affects our schools. So it could impact our infrastructure, not directly at the city, but it could impact the school infrastructure. Now, The second question is both a legal question and a moral question. And quite honestly, we had to respond. And you remember I says that we didn't deliver exclusively single resident housing? Because we have federal and state law that requires us to build certain kind of housing, which we call affordable housing. And as a result of that, we had part of a CDA that had money for affordable housing, and that project was approved to be built on Redwood Road. So we are living to that mandate. We have to be familiar with that. We also bring in different kinds of things, and I applaud the people of 2008 that served in these offices. Because you see, they built very good, high-end quality on high-density housing. So it attracts a different clientele, to be honest with you. It's still not owner-occupied, but it yet brings in a little higher clientele. Now, if you reduced all of those values and you brought in housing that would be completely inappropriate for South Jordan, you would have impact to your infrastructure, and it would be police and fire responses. That would be unacceptable. Thank
you. The first part of the question, a little bit bothered me. Did anybody hear the way that question was a little leading? It said, how are we going to, I'm sorry, Miss, would you repeat the first question? I don't want to misquote it, but it said something about minorities. I just want to make sure I get this correct.
Is it lawful and ethical and morally right to abate low-income housing in South Jordan and deny those seeking benefits of living in South Jordan the opportunity to live here?
There was no mention of minorities?
It was in my paraphrase. The original paragraph is the questioner was concerned about minorities and low-income living in South Jordan.
Okay. I think there was a little bit of I had a little bit of a problem with that because I think in America we basically established that no matter the color of your skin, you can achieve anything in your life that you want to. And so to lump minorities in with low-income housing, I thought that was an unfair attack. And so I wanted to make that clear. I wanted to air the room of that real quickly because I thought that was a wrongfully worded question. I wanted to talk about the mayor's statement earlier that he's glad to hear his candidate is implementing the plan that he's had all along. And I'm glad to hear that your plan and my plan are reconciling finally, but your record is a little different. Before the ceasing of the village mixed-use designation, there was a project that included apartments that was going to be, that didn't have their application in on time. Mr. Geilman from the city asked the mayor, should we move forward with the vote to halt village mixed use? And the mayor said, I quote, "This is a perfect place for higher density because we have a mirror to the east." Marcus, I want you to raise your hand. This is Marcus. He has a picture of the map. The mirror to the east that he's referring to is the apartments called Saint-Tropez. It's very obvious if you look at what he's talking about here. And so this idea that he's returning to single-family homes, that's new. By the way, it's also new. We heard a very persuasive argument a minute ago about schools and not funding the bond. About 3 weeks ago, we heard a very persuasive argument why we should fund the bond. And I can play the tape for that if you'd like to hear it. So we're getting a little bit of a multiple choice candidate